You're listening to the weekly Portland podcast, a slice of city life every Monday. I'm your host, Gregory Day. On today's show, we talk with Mitsu Yamazaki of the Portland Development Commission. He wrote a book on Portland's urban planning, economic development, citizenry, history, and culture, which is one of the best sellers in the urban planning section of Amazon Japan today. Now, the best interviewees are always very enthusiastic, and Mr. Yamazaki is definitely that. So let's jump right into the conversation. It's myself and Mitsuhiro Yamazaki at the Society Hotel.
So my name is Mitsu Yamazaki, and I work for Portland Development Commission as the International Business Development Officer, which is a fancy word for saying that I really work with a lot of people overseas trying to invest here, or local companies trying to export their products and services overseas.
And you wrote this book, Portland Making the Most Livable City in the World. Very exciting. And this is a bestseller in Japan?
Yes, in the urban issues and urban planning section of Amazon Japan. It is actually number 2 now this week, but it changes every hour, so who knows. But it's been bestseller for 3-4, close to 4 months, I think.
Did you anticipate that?
Not at all. Actually, I thought it would just die down in a couple of weeks because it's a pretty deep kind of a professional book instead of wider audience, kind of a general book. So I didn't think it will last this long.
Yeah, and it's quite thorough here. You gave me this outline of the book, why you chose to write about Portland. Portland's attracting a lot of attention worldwide, especially in Japan.
Yes, and it's been that way for several years now, and one of the best reasons, and people in Portland don't understand, is that our travel agency, so Travel Portland, Travel Oregon combined, have been working hard on this market in Japan for the last maybe 2 decades, very long time. And with the recent budget increase for them through the accommodation tax, etc., they've done so much more. And I can tell you, I'm basically dancing on their platform because they've built it for the last two decades. And they've done fantastic work so that we have a lot of Japanese people traveling here every week, hundreds of them. Especially in the summer, you see a bunch of them in groups. And that really built up the interest level of why this city is so different from other American cities. And then smaller group of those people start to wonder how this city was built. And there was a lot of interest in that segment, but a lot of people just didn't have access to information. So there are many English books written about Portland, but it's not well put together, or it's too specific, too boring, or too academic, and people don't get excited about. And for some reasons, my book is written easy enough and it's deep enough so that architectural, urban planners, and the municipal leaders and the workers alike, they really got hang of why Portland has become this way. From the get-go, the publisher basically told me that don't write it like the university professors because it will not sell. And for them, it's a business, so I have to really listen to their lessons learned from the past, right? Yeah. But also wanted to make sure that it's hip, just to convey the Portland culture. So it's rather hip, and it's written in a way that it's fun for somebody who wants to learn more about Portland than general facts.
And I got that from reading this outline. I mean, why Portland is attractive attention. Pacific Northwest culture is very sustainable. Well-known urban renewal projects. Can you tell us more about that?
A lot of people in Portland, I figured, don't know what PDC does.
That's true. That's very true.
Right. And interesting fact is that there is no piece of land that within the downtown, Central City downtown, PDC has not touched in some ways. Because we're the only urban renewal agency in Portland which uses borrowed money from the future. Basically, we borrowed against future increase in property tax. That's called tax increment financing. And we use that money to really invest ahead sooner than the regular market can catch up, so that developers can put money, invest in it, and make that location, the space is better. And we've been doing that for the last 56 years. And we've done a lot, including those places like the Tom McCall Waterfront Park, Pioneer Square, Transit Mall, the light rail, streetcar, the Pearl.
Hands everywhere.
Yes, Old Town Chinatown, where we're sitting right now. It's all PDC's foresight that got us nicer places today.
Right. And the Society Hotel, this is quite a beautiful area.
Yes. It was one of our projects in the recent years, and this was a 100-year-old building that was used to be used as laborers, kind of like a hostel, long time ago. And it's been rotten, like not unused for many, many years. And now, because PDC invested heavily in infrastructure and revitalization projects of this area, the owners came to us basically saying, okay, we're thinking about rehabilitating old building to a hotel. Will this work? That was how this project started.
Is this book part of was it sponsored by the PDC, or was it something you just did on your own that was inspired by your day job?
Right, so I kind of hoped that this was part of my job, but at the time we were so busy, and my boss back then, 2 years ago, basically said, you're too busy to work on a project that big. So it wasn't approved. So basically I took on as my personal endeavor, and since the publisher approached me as a person, not as PDC, I took a liberty of doing that. And I basically woke up at 4:30, maybe 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning for the last 2 years, and just keep researching, translating, and writing it in Japanese. And there were many iterations of these drafts, and back and forth between me and the publisher.
So it was sort of a passionate thing.
Yes. Yes, because part of my job is to sell Portland as an investment or economic location, and I work with many companies outside of the city, outside of the state, outside of the country, and my job is to really tell them the true story. But a lot of times, I only have very short FaceTime with my potential or the actual clients to tell this story. And there was no book that tells the whole story about Portland easily, so that was my passion.
Wow. Do you plan further editions in the future? It's doing well. This thing is doing well.
Yes. It's reaching about 10,000 copies in Japan.
Oh my goodness,
So
that's really impressive.
Very well.
And you're sort of outlining here the same principles that Sam Adams made popular, the 20-minute communities. Now that's a very popular ideal nationwide, or not nationwide, but internationally.
I think it's becoming more popular, and last week I was at the conference called Greenbuild and presented, or part of the presentation was about this kind of a convenient, well-developed small downtown, and it was a popular session too. And it is becoming popular because Portland is becoming popular, and Portland's storyline always includes this compact, convenient, well thought of communities that's accessible without cars a lot of times, but with transit, and walkability is a key for the development and such. And it's there because Pearl is kind of the first 20-minute community that City of Portland completed, and that success was the key story that we brought to the audience overseas. So it is the kind of in a way that I'm sticking to the story, and it is true here. And a lot of people who come after hearing that Portland story, when they come here, they actually believe it and they feel it. That, oh yeah, if I lived in a Pearl, I have access to mostly everything, everyday needs within 20 minutes of walking, biking, on transit, right?
No, I think a lot of Portlanders are just sort of amazed, really, that how popular the city has become in Japan. What do you attribute this to? Is it just sort of pop culture kind of thing? Is it something that's going to be temporary? Is it something that's lasting, sustainable? And are we going to have a relationship with Japan that's going to be different in the future?
Well, the relationship between Oregon and Japan goes back over 100 years easily, and that is the base of our kind of a relationship and trust. So Oregon has something to give Japan. It used to be the land and opportunity. Now it has become like a hippie design, kind of hipster design, and then an urban design and a culture and a sustainability. So storylines change, but the relationship hasn't really changed all that much. It's really between a few groups of people, and that sparks the conversation and becomes more kind of a cultural to business to more of a, I don't know, it's a bigger conversation later on. So I think this popularity from the tourist and fashion standpoint may, die away one day soon, or one day maybe in a longer term future. But the sustainability isn't a fad of fashion today. I think people are still getting caught on to that messaging and not practicing yet. And as they start practicing, they will need more best practices and lessons learned from places like Portland. So Portland will always be that kind of a pie in the sky. They will aim to or aspire to become this kind of city. Whether Portland can keep up with the reputation or keep advancing its agenda is a question, and we have to work very hard at it. But our strength is that we adapt very well to what's next. So it is talked about in the book, but we are the kind of a living lab for the world in a way. Not only one lab, but it's one of many labs that tests different ideas, and we do that testing and piloting, and then commissioning, and then making sure that everything works, and then make it real, and then let other people copy because we are very open source. Those things happen very easily and very well here because it's open, it's collaborative, and people don't have that kind of it's mine and don't touch it. It's like, here we've learned this. If you can use it, it's yours, right? They have that mentality. So a lot of people in Japan are amazed about that local open.
Amazed, really?
Amazed, because that doesn't happen everywhere,
It's true.
Yeah.
It's really true. Now we're covering the book
Yep.
piece by piece here. A compact city. Anything else you want to talk about that? Controlling urban growth, urban transit. Now, the urban growth is something that the PDC is involved with.
Yep. Yes, and of course, the entity PDC has been established to really push that elimination of blight within the city. Right, that's the entire goal to set up PDC to begin with. And as we become so successful in it, a lot of times it drives the cost of properties up, and then cost of living up as the central city becomes more successful. And then our focus has shifted to more of a neighborhood and a community development driven. So we see that, yes, downtown still needs a few spots of catalytic projects such as USPS, such as the Zaidel Yard in the South Waterfront. Those are going to be marquee projects for the future, and we are involved as we have been for the last 50 some years. But our focus has also shifted to more of a neighborhood areas, such as Lentz, Gateway, and we've been successful in the North Portland, in the North Mississippi. Yes, and then those are driving. I don't like to use the term gentrification, but driving up the cost for sure. But that was the aim for our agency. So it's hard to kind of be in a dilemma because we are successful when we get beaten by media, right? Yeah. So that's our dilemma for the last 50 years too. But in a way, we are making difference by contributing kind of a vital development opportunities to areas that haven't seen that opportunity for the last so many years. So Lentz, for example, was a town long time ago, has been gobbled up by the city of Portland, and then of course all of a sudden the Highway 205 run through the town and become bilateral totally. And now we are trying to mesh it together in a holistic way so that people can live, work, and enjoy their lives there, to become its own 20-minute community that's also networked with a very strong urban transit systems so that they are not totally separate from the city of Portland or Gresham or any other parts of the metro area.
Right. So you're bringing communities together.
Yes.
And that leads me to the next point here, neighborhood associations.
Yeah.
And you work with grassroots groups, is that right?
So it's interesting. So part of my job really doesn't include working with neighbors because my job is very out-faced, right? I work with outsiders and bringing in, or I look for opportunities for the businesses, and I don't get to work with communities often. But personally, I work with a lot of people who are active in neighborhood associations everywhere in Portland. So I get to present how it's structured and what opportunities are and what discussions are like today. And then I connect the visitors from Japan or sometimes even investors from Japan to the right type of neighborhood associations so that they can learn about each other, opportunities or just challenges or whatnot.
So they get together for tea, that kind of thing?
Yes, and you know, it's natural. Yes, you have so many people in your neighborhood association gets together pretty often to talk about certain goals, and there are challenges everywhere. It's never easy. Yet Portland manages to pull together long-term plans, urban plans, and then development projects, economic development strategies with neighbors' input and the stakeholders' input. And that's a very important task that we cannot skip. We must not skip because that's how this city have become so successful and livable. Our city is basically customized for residents because residents have say in planning, designing, and developing the place. And you know, it's true, yet local people who don't get involved in the conversation always don't say that, right? It's a kind of myth to them. It's like, oh really? I've never been heard. I don't talk to developers or city managers or whatever. Not true. You are invited if you're in part of the if you're part of the neighborhood association, and if you actually invest your time and energy to it. I think it's kind of like a membership or anything. You have to invest to get benefits out of it.
Absolutely. I love that attitude. Urban renewal by the PDC. The leadership at the PDC, how is it structured?
So it's interesting. So a lot of people complain about PDC more than looking at the leadership structure. But PDC is a quasi-independent government entity, and we have our own board members that are volunteer citizens who are chosen by the mayor and the city council. So they actually get selected, appointed, and those 5 people and our executive director make up our board to determine majority of our financial development, programming, hiring, all those decisions. So we have an independent body that leads the urban renewal, urban development of blighted area, and economic development for the city, and that's less affected, not directly affected by the politics every day. So if the mayor changes or council person changes, it won't get directly affected 100%. For example, if we are one of the departments or bureaus within the city, then it's a direct communication, direct report to a council person or the mayor, and that can be redirected quickly. While, and that's true in other cities, but because we are quasi-independent, we have a cushion. That board has not totally independence, but they have autonomy to really look at the longer-term effect to the city, and they can determine. So yes, it's not functioning 100% perfectly, obviously not, but we have better control of longer-term future of those redevelopment projects or the economic development strategies and implementation because of the structure. So I believe it's working well. It's difficult because we've lost a lot of budget to the housing bureau for the housing emergency happened last year, all those challenges. But we've faced challenges all the time for the last 50 years. It's just another one. And we've done well maneuvering around it and then coming up with the right type of solutions. Yes, we have challenges all the time, but so far we've done well.
You seem very enthusiastic.
I have to be. That's my job, and somebody has to be, right? I mean, we've experienced the recession for a long, long time, and a lot of people felt down about it. And every challenge is the opposite side of the opportunity. So we have to look at it that way.
Now, this was interesting. Looks like the last section of the book: exporting Portland's urban planning and development. So is Portland seen as a model for international development?
Big time. So, as I mentioned, I was
I think
in.
we've already covered that, haven't we?
What's that?
Haven't we already covered that or no?
A little bit, but not in detail. So, last week at Greenbuild, I presented about exactly this. So we are involved in this project called Kashiwanoha. It's an urban planning project.
What's it called again?
Kashiwanoha.
Oh boy.
It's Kashiwanoha, and it's in a book.
Okay.
But so what it is it's actually it's a large urban development master plan on a newly built transit just 30 minutes northeast of Tokyo, and it's one of the largest development of that kind. And 2 weeks ago, the project was granted the LEED ND Platinum certification, making that project the largest LEED ND master plan project in the world. And who designed it? It's ZGF, our largest architectural and urban planning firm in Portland, led by a team of Portlanders. So they were the kind of a core, but we also had a company called GluMac, which is an environmental engineers based in Portland, of course, and Murase Associates, another it's a landscape design firm out of Portland, offices in other locations, and I was part of that too. And I was part of a kind of a consortium effort called We Build Green Cities Portland. It's an kind of consortium to sell and implement urban planning and development solutions to the world. And that was our export approach to the world, that we are known for it and we should sell it, right? So in 2012, it's a long time, but long story short, in 2012, Obama administration came up with this strategy called National Export Initiative to get the nation out of the long-term recession by doubling export, but focusing on urban areas. And we were chosen as one of 4 urban pilot cities for urban export plans. And
Portland was,
yes. Besides Portland, there are Los Angeles, Syracuse, New York, and Minneapolis. And we are going far ahead of others in terms of implementation because we've gotten projects overseas, while others have different focuses. So they may be having a...
what do you attribute that to? Your efforts or just the fact that Portland's so popular?
Both, and tribute to also the Travel Portland, Travel Oregon efforts for the last decades, right?
So I didn't realize Travel Oregon was doing such a job internationally.
Well, I think the Travel Portland, Travel Oregon combines their efforts and budgets and personnel together, and they have been steadily investing time and money and creating the media buzz for many, many years. And they have Japanese-speaking staff, culturally, bicultural, very, very kind of a well thought of staff members, and then additional budget for the last several years.
Did they come up with Mr. Dude?
Yes, they did. I think they worked with Wyden Kennedy both here and Tokyo office to come up with the whole scheme, and they invested a lot of time and efforts and budget for that. They also came up with a Japanese song done by Ages and Ages in Portland, which kind of rings in your head for millions of times. You can't get the song out of your head. But those things have done well, and at the same time, Japanese kind of philosophy of life has shifted a little bit after the long-term recession. That they call it the lost 2 decades, and after global recession, and then 3/11 earthquake and the tsunami and a nuclear incident. All of a sudden, after the 3/11 incident, they've temporarily lost everything they've built up for. All of a sudden, they live to work, work to live, and for several days, they don't have water, they don't have where to go, what to do, because their life is all around the work, and then realize that, oh my God, how's my family, how are my friends, what is my life like without the job, without the money, the steady flow of money. All those things have become
Questioning values.
exactly questioning their own values, economic systems, and politics and everything. So then they realize that they have to be more sustainable, long-term looking, and they don't want to rush to live. They felt like they're rushing to die. And then realize that there are better places, and there are some places they can learn from. And one of the places was Portland. And Portland has this kind of a long-term view, sustainable lifestyle. We don't work until 1 a.m. every day. Our lifestyle is very easygoing, open, and somewhat matured, because Portland has matured its lifestyle over the last 40 years or so, and it's becoming an international benchmark. And the savvy Japanese people realize that. And then those people who realize that start to dig deeper and then wanting more answers. They have more questions and answers in the books they can buy. And then my book came along and it's doing well. I think that's part of that. There are a few kind of helpful friends and a catalyst for my success in the book. And there are a few people who I interviewed in my book that has been telling very good stories in different angles. So one of them is Bob Hastings, who is the agency architect for TriMet. And he has this great quote saying, oh yes, we not only invest in a great transit or urban planning, we have this thinking of investing in people, and we call it human infrastructure. And when he said that in a big meeting, people are like, jaw drops, and their eyes wide open, and they almost start crying. It's like, oh, that's the thing we are looking for in Japan, Oh, we don't invest enough in the people existing in the profession already, because they are used like a pieces, right, not the whole. And so for the long term, I think what Bob explained is that we've kind of helped grow these next generation leaders for the last 10 years, 20 years, so that those younger people who have gone through schools, grade school, learning about different parts of the urban areas. So it can be very urban core, or it can be suburb, or it can be natural rural area, and then how those things are connected. And it should be connected by transit, not the highways, and conserving energy, and then the buildings with local materials. All those things have been embedded in our local education, purposefully. And then all those guys who come out with PSU and U of O and other schools learning about architecture and planning have those basics and then advanced learning, and then they can actually test it out as a thesis, actual pilot projects, or maybe a freshman as a younger architect with projects. And all those opportunities are all around us in Oregon, in Portland. And the current leadership really pull that together, and we are not hesitant or afraid of using young people's ideas, because everybody's idea is welcome here, right? So that's one, and Bob is a great storyteller about that, and I probably spent 2 hours asking him a bunch of questions, and he only made it to 2 pages on my book, and I felt bad about that. But he's done so well for me.
Is that a big impact?
He has big impact in my thinking. And then another one is Kate Washington, who was the board member of Pearl District Neighborhood Association, and she was so open to receiving delegations from Japan. So I've taken or introduced her to many of my guests and delegations coming to Portland, and she welcomed them at her open events, the neighborhood association meetings, so they get to experience firsthand what that district is going for, kind of debating about and confused about what challenges are today, what opportunities are today, and how they discuss around it, how to solve those problems. And of course, not all the problems are solved at the meeting, but they see how the discussions are so open, so deeply conversed, but in a way, a lot of people contribute their ideas. And there was no bad or stupid ideas. That was so open. And that kind of basics really amazed people visiting here. And I can't thank enough Kate, because I've taken her to an event in Tokyo in front of 350 people, talk about what she does for the Pearl. And that was a big hit for us. Really? And that really pushed our We Build Green Cities initiative further in Japan. And they learned that, yes, Portland has something that Japan doesn't have. And we need to start somewhere. That's how Japan thought. Yes. And then the third person is a recent encounter. His name is Matt Bibo, and it was interesting. So 3 weeks ago, I was traveling through Japan for a week, and Matt was in Japan traveling a week before me, and then a few days after me. And we never met in person, but I've known his name for many months. And he's popular in Japan amongst the urban permaculture crowd who believe that sustainable lifestyle is possible in even urban core of Tokyo. And then that kind of a trend is going throughout Japan. And some of those towns who kind of became fan of Matt are kind of potential clients for my urban planning experts. So we can exchange emails a few times, and then we have now many mutual friends that are fans of Matt and friends of mine in Japan. And now he's becoming more popular, and maybe I should probably bring him on to my book for my second edition. So he's a champion.
Do you work with Nancy Hales at First Stop Portland?
Yes, very often. So she is, First Stop Portland is one of the key organizations to receive those delegations. And a lot of times, either she received the first inquiry, and then she includes me and the We Build Green City stories into her whole story of Portland, or I receive delegations that I am so busy because I have a day job. I can handle the tours, and I just refer to her service, and she does fantastic job telling that right story. And of course, being a mayor's wife doesn't really hurt. And she's good looking, very smart, very accomplished lady. So a lot of people basically end up being a fan of her going home to Japan. So even the long-term residents, a lot of people don't understand the depth of our urban planning, urban development history, and how well thought of back then in the late 60s through maybe mid 80s, when maybe the land use law and the Buttle Bill, urban growth boundary, creation of metro, and then a creation of TriMet or consolidation of bus companies, to urban renewal processes, to maybe even the public engagement and how those things are done and continually changed over time. Those stories are out there maybe in certain history books, but it's not a popular story. And it was important for me to dig deep and then make the story live and easier to understand in my book. Right, and then of course, I'd love to have my book translated into English so that people in Portland today can understand the history. But without telling that story, we cannot talk about the success stories of Portland today, because everything is based on those policy changes and the political champions and business champions.
That makes sense. The fundamentals.
Right, and truly, I think a lot of in my book, I talk about leadership of PDC, but PDC's projects and strategies cannot be implemented without having to have foresight from the private sector developers. So our developers are very long-term thinking, sustainable-oriented, and having a foresight and having a risk, taking the risk to make things happen. And yes, our urban renewal dollars can reduce the upfront risk, but their risk really stays the same unless we partner together and then stick together for long-term success instead of making the money in 3 to 5 years and flip it and all that things. So I really think our development sector in Portland has a unique skill sets, but also unique long-term philosophies. And there are the Hoyt Street properties, the Garden Inland, and many others who are active today. have been doing this for many, many years, over 2 decades. And the success today is tribute to them and their risk-taking foresight, but also their willingness to work with somewhat stubborn, political leadership as well as the public sector entities like PDC. I know it's not easy to work with PDC, and they stick with it. So, they're the ones who should sell their ideas, but we get to sell it today with them, and that's part of my pleasure doing my job every day. So Kashiwanaha today is the biggest certified lead ND Platinum project based in outside of Tokyo, about 30 minutes northeast, and it's the best of both worlds of technological advancement of Japan and advanced planning process from Portland based in people's ideas. And it's great. So before we arrived to this project, they've done smaller pilot scale project based on a train station called Kashiwanaha Campus Station, and everything around it, including the shopping malls, office building, hospitals, and about 2,200 condo units, and some of the ground level retails. They all are connected as one large area energy management system where the central control center can actually manage the energy flow and shape the peak load, but also when the disaster happens, they have ways to actually shut down dangerous things like trains and cars and coal fire and gas plants and whatnot.
So an earthquake.
It's an earthquake, or it can be a nuclear disaster, tsunami, or whatever. But at the same time, because they have a large energy storage, they can start feeding at least 72 hours, or if not more, to the important things like the hospitals, maybe the surgeon's bed, maybe just houses with minimal energy for people to cook or eat or bathe, that kind of things for at least a few days until everything comes back. And they have the management system so advanced that they have everything mapped out, and it can also alert people to their cell phones and wearable technologies. And what they lacked was the people-based urban planning process. So our stellar urban designers from Portland helped with the designing of the expansion part of the much bigger part of the master plan, so that people can have a say in what's needed, what's wanted in the newly expanded area, so that they can create more jobs and design the buildings and open spaces that way. Also to create the communication nodes, so maybe making the blog smaller like Portland so that people encounter and communicate better, create more kind of flexible open spaces with programs that people wanted, so that people will just meet each other often and then communicate ideas and bring in new ideas and then actually come up with better programs in the future, that kind of things. And those communities attract more business investment, but also community-oriented companies. So it will accelerate the investment to the area, but also recruit certain type of businesses that people want. Those things are happening already in Kashiwanaha. So this advanced area, I forgot how many acres, maybe 15 acres or so, a large scale area, maybe bigger, but it's a very interesting advanced community, only 30-some minutes away from downtown Tokyo. And today, or before this expansion happened, people who lived there, 2,000 people or so, just commuted out. So during the day, it was kind of vacant. There are maybe, mothers and small children and elderlies, a little bit walking around, but a lot of things are internally focused. So there's a large shopping mall attached to the station with a parking garage to it. So people who drive in will drive at the garage and go into this inward-looking, very introverted shopping mall, and their life of the day concludes there. So they maybe eat lunches and then walk around and shop and have a coffee or tea, and then spend some time walking around nice sunlight in the courtyard within the shopping mall, and then they get in a car or train and go home. So people don't go outside, so the streets are vacant. And our Pearl is totally opposite. We don't have a large-scale shopping mall. Everything is like shopping mall oriented on the street. So our street has very vital design where window shopping is the norm in Pearl because it's designed that way. When you walk, you see the first 10 feet within your eyesight, and that's where the most of the design focus is for the Pearl in the design guidelines. So you have the glass windows, and you can see through, and you can see the vitality and activity inside the building, and then people sitting inside like us will look out and see the vitalities and traffics and incidents outside, and that makes it safer and more interesting, and then enjoyable to walk and then sit. Then you create a lot more community and communication that way. And that's a secret, one of the secret sauces of Portland and Pearl's success. And we're making that a norm everywhere we go in Portland in the urban core, because we know that makes the tourism successful and the ground level retail more successful, and then ultimately the property more successful as an investment, and then the city more functional and diverse to use, so that people will be using the same space, not only from 8 to 5 during the busy hours, but from 7 a.m., maybe 6:30 a.m. to 9, 10 p.m. at night. Same location. That way the property values go up, the businesses make more money, and the return of investment comes quicker and higher, and then make everything more interesting and more investment friendly. That way the local economy circulates the money better. And then as the investments from outside are attracted for a certain type of market like Portland, then our new money circulates better. And that's when really the new economy starts. Because if you just circulate within the same locale, it's the same money over and over, just switching hands, and that does not make anyone wealthy. But you know, a lot of small cities like Portland have to rely on other cities, other part of the world for things that we don't have. So we buy Apple computer and an iPhone and an Android that's made elsewhere. We buy books from somewhere else. We buy maybe boots from somewhere else. Those are called economic leakage. That leaves our money, the money leaves our locale for somebody else's wealth. And we have to reverse that by importing, basically recruiting investment and other money from outside that adds value to the society. And that new money circulates more and adds more value to every investment. So, for example, if you, Craig, invest $1,000 to something here, it's your local earned dollar spent in local money, and then it may grow a little bit per year. But if we bring, for example, Japanese money here, then Japanese money here outside from overseas will grow faster, because investment from outside creates higher paying jobs on average and more ripple effect. And this is the basic economic development that I got to learn in my college. So that's very important, and that's part of why our economic development section of Portland Development Commission focus on traded sector instead of community development only. So community development and urban renewal is a circulation of better money and improvement of local real estate. But if we do that with outside money and then circulate that new money better, then a lot more people get more money later. Right? It's a wealth creation process. So we need to do that, and we need, for the longer term future, we need to do that with more people of color, more neighborhoods that are not doing well as much as say Pearl or downtown, and then make it more equally distributed so that we don't focus only on Central City for new investment. Yes, we can continue pumping investment to downtown because it's the face of this metro area, face of this state. It's becoming face of Pacific Northwest besides Seattle. Yes, it's important, but we need to invest new money into places like the Gateway and the Lens and Southeast and the Northwest Industrial Area, even further, say Gresham and the Sandy and the Hillsborough and the Forest Grove, because all this new money will bring in more economic growth, which ends up having more jobs that pays better, creating more jobs, and all in all, Portland is one job shed. It's a job labor force market is only one in Portland. There is not Portland and another big market. Portland sucks up all the jobs. So yes, we understand a big number of jobs in Intel in Hillsborough, and thousands of jobs are located outside of Beaverton at Nike. But those people, majority, either comes from or spend money in the city of Portland or the same metro area, and those are the money circulation I'm talking about. Yeah. And as we get new money, right, investment, foreign investment to a hotel or the Pearl or the Lens and the Gateway and maybe Airport Way and the Gresham, those new investment creates more jobs. That's new money oriented, foreign direct investment oriented, that pays more, and that benefit really affect overall economy, and we need to focus on that as well as community development and eliminating. I have a passion in what I do, and I'm hoping to slowly move the needle towards betterment of this community.
I think you're doing a great job.
I have a very small job at PDC, so.
Thank you for speaking with me today, Mr. Yamazaki. It was a pleasure.